Welcome to Shaping the New York City Skyline, a podcast that explores the stories behind the buildings that shape our city. With your hosts, David Shamshovich, Brenda Slokowski, and Camila Almeida.
Hello, everybody.
Hello, guys. Welcome to season 3.
Hey, guys. Season 3.
It's 3 feels good. My daughter's 3. There's 3 amigos. Guess what?
And 3 of us.
That's right.
That's what he said, the 3 amigos.
Welcome to season 3. As you can see, Brenda and Camilla have been really working hard to just spruce this place up. It's so warm
Great.
and it's so just welcoming, and our guests are absolutely raving about it.
We've got new comfy chairs.
That's right.
A new sign.
Knew everything.
Yeah, pretty much. Except for hosts.
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
We are here to stay,
the
guys.
show
Yeah.
wouldn't be the same without us.
Yeah,
so
that continuity.
We can't be replaced.
Exactly. Well, as you can tell, we're super excited to be back. We're here in season 3. First of all, I can't believe we've made it this far, because this kind of started as an experiment, hey, are we going to be able to do this? And now we're nearly 50 episodes in, starting our 3rd year, and the 2 of you have grown. It's been so great to watch you 2 grow and blossom. I could not possibly do any of this without you. I couldn't even thought of how much work the 2 of you would be doing on this, and how amazing both of you would be. I want to really commend.
Well, we appreciate
Yeah.
that.
Thank you.
But we couldn't have done this without you.
Absolutely not. David is our leader.
I couldn't have asked for a better team, and for all of our Skyliners out there, we really do get along the 3 of us
We
get
do.
along
Yeah.
very well. We have a very good working relationship, and obviously on the podcast it shines through. It's just natural.
Our dynamic just flows. We really work well together. And our passion for the podcast is unmatched.
Yeah.
That is
unmatched.
very true.
And now UAP is coming along, and we better be getting along, because we may have be suffocating under all the work I think that we're going to get. I don't think right away, but I think there's going to be a massive amount.
Do we have enough time to learn?
And we're starting with a good base knowledge that UAP is a tweak to things that we already know.
Yeah.
And we know the intricacies of HPD. So UAP, while it's new, it's not unfulfillar.
Exactly. It's just like 421A is to 485X. It's maybe some
Exactly.
new rules,
Just
but
the 2.0 version.
Exactly. And we're your go-to firm for that. And contact us if you need any more information. Or you could just check the notes.
True.
Or you could just learn how to spell Slokowski. We had an amazing guest today, Lizzy Zevallos from
Amazing.
Mag Partners.
Yeah.
Amazing guest.
At the outset, her passion and creativity shines through in every sentence that she said. It was so fun to listen to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you don't know her, you better know her.
You
have
Because
to.
yeah,
Like-
Mag Partners is Marianne Glenmartin. She's an impressive person. If you, unless you're sleeping under a rock, if you're in the real estate development community,
You
should
know
her.
Marianne.
yeah. I mean, the press, the interviews, and the things that she discusses, and all the things that she talks about, so impressive. Mag is an impressive firm,
Yes.
and they clearly hire impressive women,
Yeah.
like Lizzy, who's just started out as a dancer, went to do architecture, ended up doing some debt work at a place called Maverick, and then having interned for an original iteration of Mag that was in the process of separating, then went on to
Get hired by
Mag
them.
2.0,
Yeah.
exactly, and now has been working there since 2022 as assistant vice president.
Shows
And she's
her diversity, her well-roundedness as a person, and her creativity in development that is influenced by her background and all the different pots that she's had her hands in. Really, you'll listen to her story and it all just makes sense.
Yeah, we haven't listened to it yet again, because we're talking, right after it happened. But I really can't wait to listen to it, because
can't.
as I was
Me
doing it
too.
live, she was such a great speaker, had so much to talk about, and clearly well-rounded, right? Having that art background, the design background,
Yeah.
not just that one mentality. She was understanding the financial aspect of it. And she was very honest, very humble.
But you guys should keep an eye on her, because she's going to go to police.
Can't stress enough how much we've learned from Lizzy. Every guest brings something new to the table. We love talking to developers, particularly because those are the people that are in the thick of it. They're bringing all these different aspects together to create something, and they're pretty much like masters of all,
Yeah,
right?
and each developer focuses on a different aspect that seems to be important to them. Like Lizzy, for instance, she was so invested in the retail portion and what that retail portion provides as an amenity to the people in the building itself, but also to the community around you,
Yes.
and really listening to the needs of everyone and saying, what can I provide to make everybody happy? But also, you're running a business, so let's make some money.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of her success,
Yeah.
Meg's success.
Totally.
They focus on the community. They try to improve life, on the commercial side, residential side, and that's how you start.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I couldn't agree more. Creating community and, developing property in neighborhoods in New York City, you want to make sure that you keep the communities involved because we New Yorkers certainly have a lot of opinions, a lot of things to say.
Hell yeah.
And that's really what it's all about. It's kind of the name of the game and the things that you have to do. But to tap into that and to really understand that, that's a whole other story. It can bring you lots of issues. Thankfully, the people at MAG seem to be doing very well. They have lots of interesting projects, and from what she implied, there's a lot more to come with 485X, 467M, and the City of Yes. So we're really excited to see her bright future, MAG's bright future, and now we want you to see the bright future. So without further ado, Lizzy Zevallos from MAG Partners.
Amazing.
Because today we have the absolute pleasure of hosting a true Renaissance woman who effortlessly combines artistry and ambition. From pirouettes to property portfolios, Lizzy Zevallos has danced her way from center stage to the heart of New York City's real estate scene. Born to Peruvian parents and raised in Jersey, Lizzy was destined to infuse her creative spark into everything she touched. After graduating summa cum laude in architectural design and history from Middlebury College, she moved to New York to pursue a career in dance, performing on some of the city's most iconic stages. Later, she took her talents to Columbia University's prestigious Graduate School of Architecture, Planning, and Preservation, where she earned a Master of Real Estate Development and even won a prize for designing a floating arts incubator. Now, as Assistant Vice President of Development at MAG Partners, Lizzy is truly shaping the NYC skyline.
Shaping the New York City skyline.
Playing a pivotal role in transformative projects like Chelsea's Ruby and beyond. Whether she's surfing in the Rockaways, dancing her heart out, or overseeing projects that blend beauty, inclusivity, and impact, Lizzy proves that creativity and hard work are a winning combination. So let's dive into Lizzy's world and discover how she brings her boundless energy and unique vision to everything she does. Lizzy, welcome to the podcast, and we're so excited to have you.
Woo! Thank you for having me. Super excited to be here.
But we are truly excited. We wanted to have you here for a while, and you're working on so many exciting things. But I always like to start from the beginning. You're a Jersey girl, which
I'm a
some
Jersey
people
girl.
are embarrassed about, but you're not. You're
No.
very much.
I love Jersey.
So what was it like growing up in Jersey? What were your influences?
Yeah.
Maybe you can give us an understanding of what your background is and how did you come to do what you're doing now?
I was the youngest of four. My three older brothers and my parents were all born in Peru. They came to the U.S. After my dad finished his master's in England and got a job as a computer engineer at Bell Labs in Homedale, New Jersey, in that amazing Eero Saarinen building that's down there. My mom was a social worker working for the state of New Jersey, primarily focused on homeless and low-income families. So sort of in retrospect, this mixture of, engineering and mathematics and logic and reason on my dad's side, with, the human aspect of individuals and community on my mom's side is sort of kind of the perfect kind of setting to lead towards a path to something like development, which, in my eyes, when it's done well, is really bringing together architecture and innovation and placemaking and bringing all of that to fruition. My parents really emphasized, academics for all of us, but they also really pushed us to pursue our interests outside of school. So I, had a huge obsession for two things growing up. One was art and one was dance, and it really, in high school, outside of school, I was always in an art room or in a dance studio, and then in school, I went to a public school, but I really excelled and I was really interested in math and physics.
Wow, 'cause, that's such a combination of the
Yeah.
left and the right brain,
Yes.
math and physics versus art, and of course dance and the design. That's all maybe there's different practices, but it's all art.
Yeah, absolutely. And, a lot of the math and the physics, I think, came from my dad tutoring me and training me on the side in, algebra and geometry and physics since I was like a little kid.
Yeah.
He would really give me complex math and logic problems and sort of disguise them as riddles. And, kids love riddles. So that was really formative. Eventually, I graduated from high school. I went to Middlebury College, as you mentioned, in Vermont. And I saw sort of architecture as this perfect, marrying of my interests in art and math. I majored in architectural studies there, and I did, a slew of different internships over the summer, one of which was working for my older brother, Pedro, who was a small developer in Vermont at that time. I worked for one of my architecture professors one summer, and I also did a stint working for Architectural Record magazine here in New York City as an assistant editor. So all bringing together my interests in architecture and continuing to form that. And then, I graduated in 2009, which was really at the heart of the financial crisis.
Right.
So I had an internship lined up with an architecture firm, and they were literally like, we can't even give you an unpaid internship, which I couldn't take anyway. So I was sort of stuck in Vermont living with my brother, and I did the only thing I knew, which was like to get on Craigslist and just started scouring like all the jobs I could find in New York City.
You're in Vermont, obviously you're from Jersey, so not a stone throws away from New York.
Yep.
Was New York always the goal?
Yeah, it was always the goal. I mean, mostly because of my interest in art, my interest in architecture. So yeah, I went on Craigslist. I found this listing by this brother and sister duo who had just graduated from Harvard and had started this tech company called Paperless Post. Answered the listing, and like within a week, I had moved here and I was their third or fourth employee. Our headquarters was in the back room of this lingerie company office on Fifth Avenue. And we were all pretty much under the age of 23, just trying to build this company from the ground up. So that was a super formative experience for me because, I really learned a lot about what it meant to be an entrepreneur, what it meant to be super scrappy, and what it meant to wear a lot of hats. And so all of those things definitely came in handy, in my current role in development.
What kind of things were you doing at Paperless Post?
I did everything from literally answering customer service calls that at the time we had like this strange group of celebrities who were using Paperless Post, and it's like very initial period. So, so I remember spending like an hour and a half on the phone with Ivanka Trump at one point, like helping her put together an invitation. I also worked in UX design. I did a lot of editing because a lot of those, or at least the initial kind of Paperless postcards, were made from like really high resolution photos of actual paper. And so, we were really like doing anything and everything we could get our hands on. So definitely kind of a Jill of all trades type of situation.
Yeah, and you wanted to get to New York, so that was your in, right? And you're like, okay.
Exactly.
Love your initiative. Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, listen, I think that's a lot what a lot of people do. It's, they come to the city and they can't do what they want to do, so they'll work on something else while they work on, whatever it is that they want to do. But what was your aspiration? Obviously, in New York City, you had so many interests. Did you necessarily want to pick one, or are you just saying, I want to stick with this dance, but I also want to do architecture. I also want to do development.
Yeah, so what ended up happening was I was at Paperless Post for 2 years. I started dancing again here in the city. And while Paperless Post was this incredibly unique opportunity, I sort of realized this isn't quite answering either of my passions at this point, which at that point were really dance and architecture. So I sort of took a leap of faith. I quit my job to become a contemporary dancer. And I saw sort of a vision of, using my 20s to try to become a dancer while also sort of making my way slowly back to architecture, the built environment.
I always wanted to be in the arts, and coming from an immigrant family, they're pushing you into studies and to professions.
Yep.
Right. hence
Especially for
Yep.
the
South
lawyer.
American.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And Camille knows, what was your parents' reaction to
Yeah,
that?
I would say a high, of course my parents were super supportive, but there was some skepticism. It was mildly like maybe delusional
Yeah.
what I was
Right.
trying to do. Also, my parents had the benefit of having, my oldest brother who's a head and neck surgeon, my second brother who's like, was super successful in real estate development at that time. And then my third brother who was, a private school teacher who's just also doing awesome
Yeah.
things and reprogramming and moved to China doing programming there for a school. So they already sort of had touched upon all, so it kind of alleviated some of the pressure there, but of course it
Like,
was
we love you. Do what you want.
exactly.
It's a bold move, and dancing is hard because of the youth, right? It's people won't hire you because you have to be something in your 20s, right?
In the contemporary dance world, you have a little more leeway
Okay, it's
than you
not
do
ballet,
in the
that's why
ballet
it's not
world,
ballet.
but that's absolutely true. There is a finite sort of
Yeah.
time period in which you can succeed, and so it was super hard. It took a lot of perseverance, a lot of mental stamina. People I was competing against had gone to college for dance. I hadn't really properly trained in dance for about 6 years at that point. So I really, I had to find ways to take odd jobs and freelance work just to sort of sustain the cost of training and sustain the cost of living
Yeah.
here in
Right.
Yeah.
this great
Yeah.
city.
Somebody's
got
got to pay rent.
Exactly.
You were living at starving artist.
Exactly. A lot of those odd jobs were, babysitting, barista, serving at restaurants, bartending. But I also got some unique and interesting opportunities to, I worked making renderings for a small developer in Brooklyn. I did some illustration work. I worked for a carpenter at one point, helping him with some custom lofts. And then I got a really cool stint working for the Low Line, which was an organization trying to build an underground green park in an abandoned trolley terminal in the Lower East Side, which is essentially a part of the Essex Street stop underground, and it essentially shared a wall with what is now Essex Development, the L&M development
so
there.
cool.
Yeah,
That's
and back then it was just a parking lot. So it involves, fiber optic cables that were bringing, sunlight underground and really enough to create photosynthesis and create this like amazing green park. And we had, a bunch of prototypes and all these things. Working on that project, it really brought the whole jigsaw puzzle of development to light for me because it was about zoning and it was about regulation, it was about placemaking, it was about getting the community on board. All of that with architecture and engineering and innovation. And that was super, super exciting for me. And so, a few years later, around 2018, I had a fulfilling dance career at that point in not just dancing for companies, but also choreography. I'd gotten to tour to Europe and around the US, and I decided, that was the time to go back to school for architecture.
Was there what was a catalyst for that?
So the true catalyst was I actually had to get surgery on my shoulder. I had overdone it with dance. And while I was completely healed after the surgery, it was a true wake-up call to say, like, this isn't a forever career. And actually, I was sort of longing for the more intellectual in a different way, aspects of design and really like thinking through the built environment. I mean, I was super nerdy. I'd be reading like architectural theory books in my free time. I was like, I should probably just go back to school for this. So went to school at Columbia's architecture school, and that first year was, super successful for me. As you mentioned, I had won the Buell Center Paris Peace Prize, which was awarded to one student per class. And I really felt like I was onto something. But what was interesting about that was that, at the critique for that particular project, which, as you mentioned, was sort of this like building that, provided storm surge protection to the Con Edison power plant on 14th Street. And then in the summer, it opened up and became like multiple floating buildings that brought art, around up and down the East River. I was in this critique and I'm like sort of running around the room pointing to all my drawings and my plans and my models, and I'm like exasperated by all the layers of problem solving, and I'm touching on global warming and economic development and placemaking and all these things. And I finished sort of my initial monologue and I'm out of breath. And one of the critics says, but why did you make the arches in that way? And I was kind of like, no, it's not about the arches, it's about like the idea. It's about the big picture, and I'm sort of exasperated, like, forget the arches. And I sort of like came to me, maybe I might be in the not necessarily in the right program, that I was really more interested in this bigger picture and problem solving than I was in sort of the nuances of the design.
How it looks.
Right. Exactly.
To solve the problem versus how let somebody else figure out how it looks.
Exactly. So I
just wanted to stop. It reminded me of a Seinfeld episode where they bought a cashmere sweater for like 50% off.
Yeah.
And there was like a little dot on it. And everybody points out to the little dot.
Yeah.
So I'm just like, exactly. Like, the whole thing is cashmere. There's a little dot on it.
Yes.
And that's what your buddy Kramer's like, what's up with that dot?
Yeah.
So that's what it's like. It's like you're just doing this whole thing. You have it in mind that you're creating this design that's functional and it's going to really change things. And then the critic is thinking about something completely different than you had in mind. It's interesting that was the pivotal moment. It's interesting that you can identify that was a moment of, aha,
totally.
Maybe I should be shifting in a different direction.
I took a year off from architecture school, recalibrated during that time, and decided to apply to the Masters of Science in Real Estate Development program, which was under the same umbrella architecture school at Columbia. I started the real estate development program in the summer of 2019. And on my first day on campus that day, I heard about this woman named Marianne Gilmartin. And, it was like this crazy woman who had like made the New York Times building and who had done, the Barclays Center and that like amazing Frank Gehry Tower downtown. And I'm like, who is this lady? Yeah. And I learned that she had just broken off from Forest City at that time, and had started her own firm, which was at the time L&L Mag, and that they had a spring internship. And I literally decided on that day, first day of grad school, that I was going to get that internship and I was going to do everything I could to get that internship, which was great because it really became sort of this guiding light for me to say, like, what classes do I choose? Like, what TA-ships do I accept? Yeah. What's kind of the effort that I put into the various projects that, I did, individually and in groups for those first 2 semesters, because I had a super clear goal in mind.
Yeah, I think it's easy when you have a goal.
Exactly.
Everybody says visualize the goal, and then you can take the steps. So you could always shift how you're taking it, but if you have that goal, you just have to figure out the steps to get there.
Exactly. So December of 2019, I found myself in an interview with Susie Yu, who was the head of development at L&L Mag at that time. And then a few weeks later, in January, I started my internship at L&L Mag.
How many people did they accept? Or was it
just one?
Oh, great! So
yeah,
congratulations.
Wow.
Yeah, that must have been to me. Like, I love that when you see a goal through and you actually accomplish it. Versus just like, man, I just wasted a whole semester just for this.
I'll also say you're coming in with such a background, like as much as everything was different in different pieces, it all leads the same way because everything gave you this different perspective, and it like everything seems to line up. Your progression makes sense.
Yeah, I truly feel that way. And I think Mag Partners was like actually a perfect place for me to go because they really appreciate that kind of background. They appreciate someone who is design savvy, working in development, who has sort of diverse background that can give you a different perspective when it comes to, what is really our ethos, which is placemaking in this city. And at that time, it was super exciting because we were working on our first project as a company, which was Ruby. Now we call it the Ruby, 480 unit 421A building, also voluntary inclusionary housing. We were also, hunting down a bunch of different projects and also stripping away from L&L Holdings and really forming what is now MAG Partners.
Yeah.
So, wild time, of course. All of this while COVID was happening.
Right. Of course.
And then, I finished my degree remotely, finished my internship.
So how did you fare, and what kind of things did you do, and how was that time period?
Yeah, I mean, so right before COVID, we were still in the L&L Holding office, even though, the plug had, been pulled at that point. So a lot of it was sort of situating how do we kind of make this a clean break, especially because L&L Holdings also still had a stake in Ruby at that time. We were also trying to find the construction financing for Ruby. So there's a lot going on. So really COVID came at a convenient time because we were remote. We were already separating from L&L Holdings. So it was sort of like, well, we don't have to be in that office anymore.
Exactly.
There's no better time than this one.
Exactly.
So then, you graduate, right, with this Master's of Real Estate Development.
Yep.
And then do you know what you're doing next? Did you have something lined up? What was the next step?
No, so the internship finished as well. And I, spent that summer applying to as many jobs as I could. I ended up in distressed debt, working for a company called Maverick here in New York. Definitely a good time for distressed debt. So, I mean, that was a really also formative for my career in a way, because I learned a lot about capital markets. I learned a lot about lending, and I learned a lot about data, which was a huge driver of Maverick's business. And it was great. I took on a lot of responsibility in a very short period of time. I was there for about a year and a half, and despite sort of the nature of the work, it was intellectually stimulating, and I think I grew a lot during that time. I got a call from Susie Yu a year and a half into that job, and she said there was a full-time position opening at MAG Partners, and I pounced on it as quick as I could and started in January of 2022. So that was almost 3 years ago today.
Do you know why she picked up the phone to call you? What that was?
Yeah, I think, during my time as an intern, they said, it's only 2 days a week, I was like, yeah, but can I come 5 days a week? And I remember Susie Yu being like, I guess. Even though, that the portion of the time in the office got cut short because of COVID, I took advantage of every day that I could while I was interning there.
And I think that was smart of you, right? Because
yeah.
You didn't think of it as like, I'm providing you with a service. It's actually, you're providing me with a service because I get to be around you and absorb it.
Exactly.
And at the same time, you're standing out.
Exactly. The other side of the story is that I had a recruiter who had reached out to me while I was at Maverick. He was sort of testing me out around on potentially some other development companies. Word got around. He had a good friend named Susie Yu. Word got around that I was sort of on the market. And, so it was an easy phone call for her to make saying, I think Lizzy's looking for a job. So
what was the position, by the way, that opened up and that you eventually, was it the same one that you're in right now?
Same one that I'm in now. Much different profile of my responsibilities back then.
I mean, I would imagine.
Because really development is a career, as many of your listeners will know, that requires experience.
Yeah.
And it's like nothing can replace experience. At Maverick even, you could rise in the ranks, and I did pretty quickly, because really like the thing that's at risk is, it's capital, it's money, but it's an Excel spreadsheet, right? Whereas like in development, it's like a building, and so, and it's the people who live in that building, it's, so there's a lot more at stake. There's so many more things that can go wrong, and will go wrong. And so experience is everything. So, it's been an amazing journey since the very beginning to today, I would
So
say.
you start at MAG, and are you thrown into this in the deep end and you just hit the ground running? What are your responsibilities?
Yes.
And where's your role?
I started out really focusing on 421A and inclusionary housing. So, that's how, I came to know all of you.
Our bread and butter.
Yes.
Was that your first introduction to affordable housing?
What's that?
Was that the first time you had to deal with affordable housing?
Yeah, I mean, I took a lot of classes in grad school with affordable housing, but yeah, this was the first time I was really thrown into the nitty gritty of it all, and not just the mechanics of affordable housing, but also the mechanics of our government agencies, timing, and all the various steps and nuances that go into it. Exactly. So that really, I worked on that. We were trying to get our footing in the ground for two other projects, one on 8th Avenue and one on 50th Street, before the 421A deadline. So that also was a huge priority. I started in January of 2022. We had about 6 months to get that footing in the ground. Yeah. And that, I worked with Rob Willis, who started on the same day as me, head of construction. And, I'm fortunate to work for a company that is super nimble, super creative. We installed the footing at 8th Avenue in a active loading dock for the Gristettis that was, literally open while we were putting the footing in the ground. It's gone now.
Oh,
So
there you go.
and then on 50th Street, we actually, for a variety of different reasons, we couldn't get the demo permit to demo the vacant townhouses that were on the assemblage. So we literally had a team of guys walk through the front door of one of the townhouses with hand tools, walk out the back door and start drilling or really digging by hand. And then once they hit the bedrock, literally drilling with hand tools to get that footing in the ground.
Oh,
You know what? That's called creative solutions.
Exactly.
I mean, the 421A deadlines obviously they're what's the word? They're merciless.
Yes.
They're just you miss it and you're pretty much done.
Yeah.
So I can understand why sometimes you have to employ some creativity when you're having issues. And in real estate, you know better than I do that it's always going to throw you some curveball.
Exactly.
Going to come along. What were the things that you found that were surprising, that you were proud of, happy about? Whatever reactions you had to the learning aspect of these programs that employed affordable housing in order to obtain benefits that would then permit you to build a building, because without them, you essentially couldn't build it, at least without the tax exemption.
In New York City, you really can't build rental housing without a really good program. And so, 421A brought the steam power to bringing housing supply for many, many years. And then, when 421A expired, we saw it around the city. New permits just completely dropped off in 2023. And so, I think being sort of inside on 421A projects made it super clear, from an economic standpoint and from the market forces that are currently, at play in the development environment. It made it super clear how necessary a program like that is to, get the backing of investors to be able to build rental housing in New York and be able to sort of address some of the housing crises that we're seeing today.
We're thankful for the city for recognizing that and
Yeah.
implementing 485X.
Exactly.
Yeah. And then,
Exactly.
Obviously, the new program came, and there's an extension. I'm not sure. It sounds like you're completing your projects in time.
Yeah.
So the extension won't be necessarily really.
Totally. I mean, we did, the prudent thing, which is we filed for the extension for the just in case, but we see no reason to have to tease that.
Side and shine, guys, for all your inclusionary and 485X needs.
I'm trying to. You sound like an infomercial. What is your maybe the internal MAG reaction or other reactions you've seen about 485X? Because developers aren't as excited as I would have wanted them to be about the program. I'm seeing a lot of questions, a lot of hesitancy, particularly with City of Yes, how all these things are going to work.
There are a lot of unknowns.
Yeah, there are a lot of unknowns, so maybe that could be it. But
Totally.
You tell me what your experience and what your thoughts have been about this new program, and also the new changes that are coming along. how are people thinking about this stuff?
Yeah, so I mean, I think 485X is something, and that's better than nothing for sure. And like I mentioned, I don't know if it's going to have the same type of steam power to, really push housing supply the way that 421A did. That said, I am super lucky to be working for a company that is super creative in how we're trying to look at these deals and underwrite them so that we can, get the support and get the returns that can get the backing of our investors. Yeah. That said, the program as a whole, I think, is a disappointment for the city in that, it won't provide the same steam power that 421A did for the housing supply.
Is it just, I mean, to me, I think it is, but is it just the wage requirements, or are there other things in there that are problematic?
I think it's primarily, it is the wage requirement. And you're seeing things like on Flatbush Avenue with J Group, that, I think they're building 5 contiguous, buildings that are neatly below 100 units just to evade the wage requirement. Yeah. And, you have other developers who can't even find the workaround. You have, Two Trees and you have Durst who are, pulling plans or near pulling plans on significant rental projects. And so I think that, while 485X there's so much good in it and there's so much good intention, I think that these sort of workarounds aren't necessarily the outcomes that our politicians wanted, the outcomes that their constituents wanted. We, and I'm sure a lot of developers around the city, are forging ahead, and we're going to find ways to make it work. So I'm not concerned with, any halt in housing supply. I'm just thinking about, the 50,000 units a year that we need to build in order to address the housing crisis. And 485X alone, I don't think will achieve that. Yeah. I hope it will, but I'm not sure it will.
So I wanted to turn to just 485X, obviously City of Yes, but then we have these 467M, the tax exemptions for office to residential conversions, and a lot of City of Yes makes it easier to do office to residential conversions. And is that something that MAG is looking towards, or has any thoughts about? I mean, I guess this is kind of, it's on trend right now, right? But I didn't know if you guys were doing any studies or looking at any
We are, and we're actively looking at sites, and we are definitely bullish and optimistic about conversions in the future for us and for the city in general. I think there's like a few things that you have to think about when we're thinking about office conversions. It's, does the floor plate work? It's, are there tenants in place that, can delay a project and kind of hurt the finances?
So there's a lot of creative things that people are coming up with to get this stuff done. I think it's a good solution. It's not gonna, but like you said, you just have to employ all the things and just hope that that's gonna create some kind of traction with this stuff.
Yeah, I mean, that's you bringing your creative and well-rounded mindset to
Exactly. Exactly.
So now I want to turn to some of the amazing projects that you work on, just to give it a little bit more color, because I know the Ruby is something that you started off as an intern.
Yep.
Now it's actually happening.
Yep.
So this is, and you actually said recently there was a posting from your firm given the Fellows program, and I'll talk about that a little bit because I think that was interesting as well. They had a little Q&A with you, and you had said that this is something that's near and dear to your heart because this is the first MAG project, the first MAG since they split. Your first project, essentially, because and you've continued it. What were the stages when you were an intern versus when you got there? How had the strategy changed? Those kinds of things.
Yeah. So when I was an intern, we were looking for construction loan. COVID happened. After I left, like our company, MAG Partners, was able to secure a construction loan with Madison at a time when really nobody else was able to secure a construction loan. So super, exciting. I think also speaks to MAG Partners' ability to really work through cycles. There's something special when you can have a modern building that also has character. I think that's something we absolutely achieved at Ruby. And I think that it's that sort of special touch that differentiates a project like that and a lot of our projects. On top of that, we're super interested in this idea of biophilia. So bringing the outdoors in, really an emphasis on light and wellness and green spaces. And sustainability. So, Ruby is a LEED Silver project. We even went further on our 8th Avenue project around the corner and went LEED Gold and Passive House on that one. But, Ruby really brought a lot of our different sort of ethos that keep us all going all together. And it wasn't without its challenges. We got this construction loan in 2020, like I mentioned. We never knew that interest rates were going to go as high as they did. Yeah. When they did go that high, it really meant that our interest reserves were depleted much quicker than we thought.
If you can even get a loan, by the way.
Exactly. A lot of different stages of this process that had sort of brought us to where we are today.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. We have a lot of people who were in that same situation. Their construction loans were coming due, and they had to either make a deal or do like a bridge or find permanent financing, which is, like you said, if you're not, if the building hasn't been stabilized, leased up, and there's not enough cash flow, you can't refi. So it becomes a problem, and these are the problems that happen when, for example, HPD or another agency is stalled on completing a project, getting a TCO. It becomes a problem because there are this red tape that then prevents built units from going online and from proceeding with the loan. This is like important stuff.
Yeah. But we definitely forged ahead and we stabilized this past summer.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And now a big part of our focus is, turnover, releasing those units, but also on the retail. So the retail is, it is how we greet pedestrians. It's how our building greets drivers in cars. And it contributes not just to the building itself and the residents of the building, but it also contributes to the community. So when you think about retail as an amenity, we don't just think about it as an amenity for our residents. We think about it as an amenity for the neighborhood. Yeah. So we're super excited. We have Pet Evolution that will be probably opening in Q4 of this year, which is sort of like the Whole Foods of pet stores.
So you actually had to bring in a produce store or a grocery, right? It wasn't just...
Yes, we had to.
So
that's right.
Why was that?
So the reason why we had to do that is because that project on 8th Avenue, it's on 26th and 8th Avenue, is on a ground lease with Penn South Co-ops, also known as MRH, Mutual Redevelopment Houses. They are a co-op that's existed since the 1960s. They span, I think, 6 city blocks. Wow. And so they are our ground lessor, which literally means that every time we come to the table with our ground lessor, we are speaking to, 3,000 plus owners who all have an opinion. And so part of this deal was that we had to replace what, the Christie's with a quality supermarket tenant. And so Lidl was where we got to, and it was definitely really at the top of the pile of all the supermarket tenants that we were looking at, and we were lucky enough to make that deal.
Were the landlord and their constituent, their people that comprise them, how they feel about that? Did they know about this grocery and were they okay with?
Yeah, I think we did have to go through some kind of approval process. They approve everything from not just the color of the brick of the building, but also the
artwork you put up in the hallways.
Oh, absolutely.
The whole thing.
They're asking questions about the mechanical on the roof and what kind of toothpaste is being provided at Lidl when they do open. But in all seriousness, it's an amazing group of people. They all have really good intentions, and they care about their community that they've all lived in, they grew up in, their parents lived in, their grandparents might have lived in. And so they are, for good reason, pretty detail oriented when it comes to, what we're building on that site. And so we are happy to, always answer those questions, always try to find middle ground with them and make sure that we're all happy.
Yeah. Another thing I want to touch upon which is actually pretty recent, right? You just completed this program, 2023 REBNY Fellows Leadership Program.
Yeah.
How did this come across your desk? Why did you apply? And then what was the experience like doing that program?
Yeah, so REBNY actually reached out to MAG Partners and asked, is there anyone that you think would be a great candidate for this program? And, Ashley and Marianne and, everyone at my company thought to, nominate me to sort of apply and see if I could get into this program. So I did, and it was a really great and interesting experience. It really mixed not just, speaking to, some of the premier experts in many different aspects of development in New York City, but also a lot of soft skills of like what it means to be a leader, which are sometimes I think easily overlooked. You don't necessarily learn those things. Like, how do you communicate? Yeah. Communication is, not something that you see not just, in your private life, but it's also like, it's so important for your professional life. Yeah. Exactly. I'm typically a kind of like, kind of girl, but like I did learn a lot in that program, and I'm super grateful that I went through it.
It says so much about about your role at Mag Partners that they nominated you. Everybody looked around and was like, Lizzy is the girl for that.
It says so much about you. So obviously I'm super curious about how it is to work with Marianne, but more so, what's the culture of that place? Because I very much see Mag as it stands out, right? You have developers who are just like plain vanilla, and there's some that really stand out. Yeah, Mag is one of those to me. Yep. And Marianne Gilmartin comes to mind like immediately. Like they've really created that synergy or that link in my brain. So I just wanted to kind of let you talk about those aspects, because obviously it's such an interesting thing and it's unique. You guys are doing so well. I wish there was more places like you guys doing that stuff.
Yeah. The very core of our culture is this idea of inclusion, this idea of diversity, and that not only, I think because it's at the core of our culture as a company, it kind of permeates our projects as well, and that's why you're sort of seeing a lot of the work that we do is really thinking about the big picture. So, as far as working at Mag Partners, I think, I don't have the context of other development companies. I do have the context of, a few other companies that I've worked for, but I think that what makes us unique is that we aren't just sort of like the finance person who, took this very straight line path to get to where they are today, or, on the development side or on the construction side. We've all sort of had these really interesting and eclectic sort of backgrounds that bring a lot of unique perspectives to the table. And we're really open about bringing in the opinion of our interns, bringing in the opinions of our executives, bringing everyone together and really like collaborating heavily to put together what I think are super special projects that stand out.
Yeah, I think they do, and we love working with you guys, and the things that you're doing are amazing. I'm so excited to see what's going to happen in the future. So happy that you were able to
I want to see more of your creative projects.
So you just wanted to say, so cool to meet you, and I'm really looking forward to, like, I can't believe how early you are in your career and how much you've done. So I can't wait to like see what's up next, because you're like a prodigy.
I'm going to follow you.
Yeah, I mean,
don't worry, we're going to work together again.
Yes, we will, for sure.
That's the idea, Brenda.
I know.
I'll be calling you, in a couple hours.
Right, I
got a question about that.
Should I give you a call in an hour?
I thought you were about to say, I'll call you, don't call me.
No. Lizzy and I talk all the time.
No, I know. I'm the only one that doesn't talk to Lizzy. Well, it was fantastic. Thank you very much for spending the time with us, and we really enjoyed it.
Yeah, we really appreciate
so much for being
here.
It's great being here.
Well, everyone, that's our show. Thanks so much for listening.
And of course, don't forget to subscribe. Also, don't forget to leave comments. We would love to hear from you.
Yeah, feel free to reach out at info@sideandshine.com or visit our website at sideandshine.com. We really look forward to hearing from you.
You can also reach out to Brenda, Camille, and me at bslakowski@sideandshine.com, C. Almeida at sideandshine.com, and D. Shamshovich at sideandshine.com.
Those are lengthy last names. You can just find us on our website.
That's right.